Welcome to MMA Daily. Here we bring you the latest and most exciting news from the world of mixed martial arts. If you love MMA, make sure to like our videos and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the thrilling updates. Get ready for some interesting news today. Starting off, Jake Paul, Sean Strickland, Nina Marie Daniele, and others react to Donald Trump being projected winner of 2024 US presidential elections. Moving on, Dustin Poirier seemingly approves Max Holloway trilogy fight for final UFC appearance. Next, Stipe Miocic responds to criticism that Tom Aspinall should be fighting Jon Jones at UFC 309 instead. Lastly, Shavkat Rakhmonov calls to fight Kamaru Usman for interim title at UFC 310. Jake Paul and several other prominent combat sports figures took to X to react to Donald Trump's projected win in the 2024 United States presidential elections. Trump is a former president, having served as the 45th of its kind between 2017 and 2021. Below, see how celebrities reacted to Donald Trump's victory. The truth and God won in America. This is a massive step in the right direction to heal the major issues going on in the world currently. America is saved. Yep, you guys were right. MSNBC was the move. Currently watching an angry lesbian have a meltdown. Tonight's forecast, expect heavy shower of liberal tears. Congratulations, President Donald Trump. Done deal, let's go. And at this moment, I knew who was going to win the presidential election. Speech, God bless the USA. Historical time for the USA today. I'm leaning towards Trump in hopes of a better economy for all social classes, ending of these horrible wars we're funding and involved in, and a better handling on mass immigration and vetting visitors. Donald Trump isn't the only politician with whom Jake Paul has interacted. He previously snapped a picture with former independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Curiously, UFC commentator Joe Rogan also praised Kennedy and received tremendous backlash from his Republican fan base, including Donald Trump himself. Fortunately for him, cooler heads prevailed and he and Trump are now on better terms. What do you think about the possibility of Donald Trump's re-election as President of the United States, especially in the context of his influence on popular culture and sports? How could his candidacy impact the UFC, which has become a global sports phenomenon, as well as the broader dynamics of the sports and entertainment world? Could a Trump victory open up new opportunities for the UFC in terms of investment, legal regulations, or even political relationships, given his close ties with UFC executives and sponsors, as well as his tendency to associate with controversial and polarizing figures and events? It appears that Dustin Poirier wants to face Max Holloway in his final UFC fight. Dustin has been out of the cage since a third crack at lightweight gold at UFC 302 in June. In the main event of that card, Dustin faced Islam Makhachev. Despite entering the cage a massive underdog, the longtime contender gave the champion all he could handle. However, Makhachev still scored a fifth-round submission to retain his title. Following the defeat, Dustin again teased retirement. However, after a brief hiatus, the former interim UFC champion announced plans for one final fight. As one of the sport's longtime action stars, it's hard to imagine that Dustin wouldn't have a choice in his final opponent. Over the last few months, Dustin has discussed fights with everyone from Nate Diaz to Justin Gaethje. However, it appears that the longtime fan favorite wants to fight Max Holloway. For his part, Max is fresh off his return to the cage in the main event of UFC 308 last month. There, the Hawaiian was handed a third-round knockout loss in his return to featherweight against Ilya. Following the defeat, Holloway announced plans to move to lightweight permanently. Well, it seems that Max Holloway could face Dustin Poirier in his return to 155 pounds. Earlier today, the latter responded to a fan on X, who called for a fight between the two. There, Dustin responded by seemingly approving the fight, calling it the last dance. If the bout is booked, it would be the third meeting between the strikers. The two first faced off at UFC 143 in February 2012. That night saw a relatively unknown Max Holloway make his promotional debut on short notice against Dustin. Ultimately, it took less than a round for the future interim champion to score a victory by submission. Over 7 years later, the two faced off in the main event of UFC 236. With interim lightweight gold on the line, Dustin handed Max Holloway a unanimous decision loss in a Fight of the Year contender. 5 years on from that firefight, the two could be set to go again in the final UFC appearance for Dustin. Former UFC heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic believes most fans want to see him fight Jon Jones. The 42-year-old hasn't been seen in the cage since a second-round knockout loss to Francis Ngannou in early 2021. Due to the destructive nature of the defeat, some some assumed he would never fight again. However, over 3 years later, he's set to return at UFC 309 opposite Jon Jones. However, the title shot is controversial to some. While few would doubt Stipe Miocic's place as one of the greatest UFC heavyweights of all time, there's currently an interim champion by the name of Tom Aspinall. The Brit won the gold last November with a knockout win over Sergey Pavlovich and stopped Curtis Blaydes in July. Since the announcement of Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic, Tom Aspinall has been on a warpath. The interim UFC heavyweight champion has repeatedly slammed both men. Furthermore, Aspinall has argued that most fans would rather see him fight Jon Jones than the 42-year-old former champion. He also intends to attend the event in New York City later this month. However, Stipe Miocic has to disagree with the interim champion's comments. Speaking in a recent interview, the UFC heavyweight contender was asked about a possible Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall fight. There, Miocic noted that he's not the matchmaker, but he also understands why they gave him the title shot over the Brit. "It wasn't my choice, it's a fight I wanted, and the UFC gave it to me. They didn't have to. They gave it to me. I believe so there's a reason why it's happening. I believe people want to see that. I think a lot more people want to see the fight than him fight Aspinall. But Tom Aspinall is tough. He hits hard. I was real sensitive. I literally stopped caring anymore. I don't care what anyone says. I don't really care." Shavkat Rakhmonov is hoping to remain on UFC 310 and wants to fight for the interim title. Rakhmonov was supposed to headline UFC 310 against Belal Muhammad for the welterweight title, but the champ suffered an injury that forced him to withdraw. Although Rakhmonov could wait for the title shot, he wants to remain active and calls to fight Kamaru Usman for the interim title. "I believe there is a worthy opponent available. I'm ready to save the card too if it's for the interim title. I believe Usman is the worthy opponent who's also probably ready to jump in and face him." Rakhmonov's manager then said there are negotiations ongoing to keep him on UFC 310 in an interim title fight. He also believes Usman has been offered the fight and is the opponent that makes the most sense. Shavkat Rakhmonov is coming off a submission win over Stephen Thompson last December. Rakhmonov is 6-0 in the UFC and has won all of his fights by stoppage. Kamaru Usman is on a 3-fight losing streak. Usman lost back-to-back fights to Leon Edwards to lose his welterweight title. Although Shavkat Rakhmonov has been calling for an interim title fight, Belal Muhammad doesn't understand why. Muhammad says he just won the title and thinks Rakhmonov can wait for when he's healthy for the title shot. I could see them trying to do something with Shavkat, but he's calling for an interim title fight. It's like, interim title fight? Bro, it's 6 weeks, not 6 months that I'm off. But even for myself, if they wanted to do that just to make it a main event, I mean, I don't really care about it if they want to make an interim title fight regardless, because they know who has the real belt. So for me, I know who my next opponent is going to be. Thanks for watching MMA Daily. We hope you enjoyed the latest updates from the world of mixed martial arts. If you did, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more exciting content. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video. Stay tuned for more MMA action.